All right, welcome back. Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today, I did want to talk about IQST. And for those of you guys who didn't know, I did forget to mention this. I've talked about this stock on the channel previously, and we've talked about it when it was an OTC. I actually talked about this stock back in 2021. Now, this is after it went on its parabolic run, right? So if you guys remember, this is split adjusted, by the way, because they went on the NASDAQ. So now they are officially a NASDAQ listed company, and they are trading at $10 per share. Okay, so if you look at, the last year, for example, down 18%. Now this chart is, like I said, so if you take the split they just did to get on the NASDAQ, this is where they're trading. Now, if you look at the volume, they're actually trading a lot more volume already because of the liquidity. So that's one of the beautiful things about going on the NASDAQ is when you go from OTC to NASDAQ, you have more liquidity, more volume, and that's just one great thing about uplisting. But this was a stock that grew revenue. This company came in, I think it was 2017 when they officially came to market, and they just started killing it, killing everything. Their revenue grew substantially. Now they're on path to do $1 billion plus in revenue. And it says they began trading on the NASDAQ as of May 14th, 2025. So I just wanted to say, if you were an IQST shareholder, it's always the dream to get listed on the NASDAQ because there's more liquidity. It's easier to buy and sell, those larger positions. And it's just a better feeling overall. Now, although the price really hasn't changed that much, I do wish all IQST shareholders the best. And, hopefully, the actual growth of the company results in a much higher share price long term. Perhaps they hit $100 a share. They have the liquidity now. They have the market makers, the backing to do that. So we'll see what happens with IQST. But this news came out on May 14th, 2025. Now, if you look at the most recent news, June 11th, June update, 77.8 preliminary revenue. And that is for, execution momentum towards 1 billion revenue goal in 2027. So it says January to April 2025, they reported 77.8 million in preliminary net revenue for the first 4 months of 2025, representing 12% growth over the same period in 2024. Now, what's interesting is there's a certain individual who helped grow this company, and that individual, right, they oversaw basically from the beginning the growth of IQST. Now, that same individual is actually going into another OTC stock. So they are actually going into another penny stock, guys. So that's the interesting part. And it's also your opportunity too, if you think about potentially if you were going to follow somebody who has a lot of credentials, like he has an MBA from a top-rated university, he has years of experience, and on top of that, he has large connections, and he can leverage those connections to help grow certain businesses. And in fact, it's funny enough, right? I didn't even really think about this because I've talked about IQST in the channel years ago, and more recently. Last year, I think in 2024, before Christmas, we probably talked about it on the channel a little bit. But all of this is happening, and now you have that same director going to a new company on the OTC. And in fact, this news just came out on June 12th. So there's a lot of interesting stuff happening. IQST gets uplisted to the NASDAQ. And if you guys know who Oscar Brito is, this is pretty big news, I think, for AFFU. Now, what I'm going to tell you is, first of all, penny stocks are risky. IQST is risky. They've grown revenue, but it's risky regardless, okay? And so even if this guy's able to grow revenue for this company, penny stocks are a substantial risk. Always do your own due diligence. Consult a financial advisor or somebody. I've worked in the securities industry previously. I have my finance degree, but I'm not your financial advisor, and I'm not currently registered as a securities dealer or anything like that. So just remember that, okay? So when you're looking at AFFU, a global technology holding company specializing in smart infrastructure and edge computing solutions, they announced today the appointment of Oscar Brito as president of the company with immediate effect. His appointment is a crucial step in the planned acquisition strategy to scale and profitably grow the group in the smart city and connected industries IoT space. Mr. Brito will be reporting to the board and be responsible for identifying, obtaining financing, and managing acquisitions within the United States. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Mr. Brito brings a wealth of experience in his private equity, capital formation, mergers and acquisitions, and real estate development across the United States, Europe, and Latin America. He's played key roles in raising over $600 million of funding for projects and companies across real estate, telecommunications, and information technology sectors. And as a principal and co-investor, he has additionally raised approximately $400 million in capital across a variety of industries, including value-added telecom and telecom infrastructure investments. His expertise lies in identifying high-growth, opportunistic investments and structuring complex financial transactions to support their execution and growth. Now, what stock did we just talk about that, right? We just talked about that. So IQST, right? More recently, Mr. Brito was the co-founder, member of the board, and an active investor in IQST, a publicly traded, well, of course, right when we get to the best part here, right? Okay. So he was a active investor in IQST, a publicly traded U.S.-based telecommunications company generating over $300 million in annual revenue. IQST has become a recognized player in the international telecom market with a focus on next-generation services and infrastructure. Oscar's expertise in identifying high-growth acquisition opportunities and raising capital will help us in accelerating the growth of the group, said William Goyner, CFO of Affluence Corporation. And this is the new CFO after all of this has happened, right? So we have new management coming in. But this Oscar Brito guy, I'm pretty excited about this because if you think about the growth that IQST experienced when it was under his, guidance, and all of the deals he structured for IQST, this could significantly impact AFFU. So funny enough, I do want to position it as a disclaimer, but I found this interesting because you have IQST going to the NASDAQ, then you have Oscar Brito, who was a co-founder of IQST, coming on board with Affluence. And if you look at the price of Affluence, you're going to be quite shocked because if you look at the actual price of it right now, after this acquisition is completed, and they're actually doing these international deals with MingoThings International, which has a LinkedIn following, has social media everywhere. Like if you look at LinkedIn, for example, you can come on over to, let's just go to, who would it be? Let's see here. I'm trying to find, MingoThings, or where would it be? Sorry, let's see here. MingoThings International. Yeah, so this is the LinkedIn page for the company that AFFU is already merged with. Now you have Oscar Brito coming in, trying to do additional acquisitions. But they have a LinkedIn following. Exciting news for AFFU. They are verified with Dell. They reposted this news. This was actually old news, but it's still relevant. So they have joined the Dell Technologies ecosystem. So AFFU, MingoThings, everything combined. I'm going to go ahead and like that because why not? If I can, I don't know. There it is. But yeah, so they're building smart cities, they're building the future, they're building, technology that's going to become more and more relevant, I think, as we progress. So this is pretty big news, guys. I'm pretty excited. But the thing too to keep in mind is that 0002, right? So that's 2/100ths of a penny. So right now, 1 million shares cost $200. Now you can say that's relatively cheap. That's why am I only paying $200 for a million shares? That's a lot. Because if it goes to 10 cents, now you have on 1 million shares $100,000. And if you spend $1,000, now you have 5 million shares at 0002. If you spend $2,000, you have 10 million shares. And if it goes to 10 cents, now you're a millionaire on paper. So these things have happened in the past. There has been previous bull markets for the OTC. That's why we talk about the OTC because, just like crypto, just like blockchain, just like everything else, it's all interconnected. The markets move in cycles. And stocks like this, even though they're dead right now, everybody will say this stock's dead, has no volume, it's doing nothing, which is true. But when these things do go parabolic, you can actually see these decimal places move over 2 or 3 places. I've seen it happen countless times. And so if you're somebody who likes a lot of risk and you're willing to risk $1,000, you're willing to risk $2,000 on an opportunity like this, when we have Oscar Brito coming on board, who basically took IQST or helped take IQST to the NASDAQ, on top of everything else, we have MingoThings International already acquired, already part of AFFU. And then you have a share price that's under, it's 0002 and the market cap's under 1 million right now. The total value of AFFU right now is under $1 million. So these are all factors to consider in terms of valuation, in terms of who's coming on board, in terms of the new management, in terms of the companies, in terms of the volume right now, because, there's plenty available at this price right now, but there might not be in the future. So these things can change, right? There's different cycles that happen. So just keep that in mind, guys. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for tuning in. I find this stuff exciting, and it really is. It's fun. I've always liked the OTC. I've always liked the higher risk aspect of some of these stocks and just the fun of it. As long as you're not risking more than you can afford to lose, as long as you're not betting the kids' college fund, you're not taking all of your mortgage money, and as long as you're responsible, you're paying your bills and all that, I think, there is a place for the OTC in your portfolio, depending on your risk tolerance and your investing goals. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And with that being said, I will be making an update video for you guys wondering before you start asking me in the comments. I'm sure some of you guys are going to ask me for an update on. It'll be, of course, the TNXP 102SL one, if you guys know which one that is. Phone is ringing. Anyway, I'm going to shut this off, but I'll give you a hint. That's what it's all about right there. Tonix Pharmaceuticals, guys, in the next video. All right? Take care, and we'll see you guys in the next one.